In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to set up the podcasting environment in your Blackboard unit. It's very important that you're in the Build tab because you can't do anything with Wimber in terms of setting the environments up unless you are in the Build tab. So I'm going to go to my podcaster folder, and you'll see that it appears in the hierarchy with a list of all of the files and the folders and the headings that I'm using in that particular folder. In order to set up any Wimber environment, you go to the Add Content Link tab, click on that once, and a number of options will appear. You'll see towards the bottom there's actually one called Wimber Podcaster, and if you click on that once, another dialog box will appear. And in this dialog box I have the option to create a Wimber Podcaster or to select one that's already been created. So you'll see in this box here that there are two created. There was one called Podcaster Tutorial and there's one called School of Education. But in this case I'm actually going to set up a new one. So I'm going to click on the Create Wimber Podcaster tab, and this takes me to my environment where I can actually create it. So I'm going to give it a title, and I'm going to call it School of Ed Test. So that's going to be the name of my podcast, and that is the name that will appear when people subscribe to it through something such as iTunes. Click on Continue, and a further dialog box will appear. You have the option to put a description in. Again, this description will appear in most podcatchers that you use to subscribe through. In terms of audio quality, I've always found that standard is absolutely perfect. You don't need to go any higher than that. I leave these two buttons unclicked, and then in terms of the podcast auto-published after, this is the amount of time between the episode being recorded and between when it's actually published for subscription. So you can actually have a delay so that students or yourself can go through and review what you've recorded. I usually set it to 1 minute because that means that the episode will be published pretty quickly, and then students don't worry that they've done something wrong. Then I click on Continue, and this will take me back to my my hierarchy that shows me that the podcast has actually been created. So it's down here at the bottom, School of Ed Test. You'll notice at the moment it's got the number 4 next to it, so it's appearing as a whole new entry. I want it to appear underneath my environment heading. So I click in the box on the left, and then I click Indent. And you'll now see that the School of Ed Test podcast has been indented to the right, so it's going to have the same format. If I was now to go to the Student View tab and click on my podcaster folder, in the left-hand side in the table of contents, underneath environment, you'll see I've now got my two podcasts. So I've got the School of Education podcast and I've got the School of Ed Test podcast. For the next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to actually record and publish a podcast episode, and I'll be clicking on the School of Ed Test link, and this will take me to my podcast environment, which you can see appearing now.